Hi, welcome back. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. So in the last studio we did quite a lot of stuff. We obviously learned about sequencer, learned how to animate stuff. We made quite a complicated little sequence when it came down to it. And I bet you didn't think that in a starter course you'd be learning kind of how to do this kind of interactivity straight away. But the whole point is I want you to start creating things. You only learn when you're being creative. That's really a big thing. You can't just learn with like, and this is what this does. Your brain will go mad. So what we're going to do is turn my computer desktop on so that you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to start an empty open world. Why are we doing this, you may ask? Well, there's a very, very good reason. We, together, you and I, we're going to build a complete project. Well, a miniature complete project. It's nothing really, really difficult, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to create a little landscape with a few things on it, and we're going to create a place where you start from and a place where you end, and we're going to make it so that you have to find an object and pick it up on the way. So we're going to use things like our materials skills that we picked up on the way, our blueprint skills, sequencer skills, and I'm going to show you a new one as well, which is to do with landscapes and foliage. Okay, so let's get started straight away. Now, we've got nothing in our scene at the minute. It's like being a magician. I love saying that to people when I'm teaching, but it very much is. It's smoke and mirrors. We've got nothing up our sleeves. We've got nothing in the scene at the minute. So let's go over to window, and we are going to put the light mixer on and wait for it to load. There we go. Actually, no, not the light mixer, sorry, the environmental light mixer. There we go. Big difference. And we'll create a skylight, atmospheric, a sky atmosphere, volumetric cloud, and a height fog. Okay, just so that we've got the basics here, and we'll tweak that in a minute or two. Now, I don't want to go into details too much because I don't want to overwhelm you with things, but let's start by using a landscape. So if we go to selection mode, and you see here it says landscape, I'll just click on that, bop, there we go. And what it does is it gives us this kind of enormous area here, okay, that we can customize if we want to. So we could use a grayscale map to work out heights and things if we wanted to, or whatever. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the section size on this to maybe 31 by 31 because it's a little bit large. I'll keep the number of components the same, but the overall resolution is 249, so it's not too huge, but it's pretty massive, if you know what I mean. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to click create, not fill world, create. When I do that, this will now become like a solid color, like so. And to kind of demonstrate how big this is, what I'm going to do is come out of landscape mode. So I'll go to selection, go to shapes. I'm going to drag a cube and drop it over there, and another cube and drop it over there. And now I'll use my move tool, F, there we go, to go to that one. Select the other one, which is over there, hit F. You can see they're quite a long way apart. If I go play from here, you can see it's going to take me probably about 30 to 60 seconds, maybe longer, to walk all the way across the map to that. Now, the power of a landscape, let me just get rid of these cubes now. The power of a landscape is that we can basically create large areas of ground. I'll just get rid of box or cube or whatever this is. So we've already created this big flat area here, but what we can do now is we can kind of tailor it exactly to our needs. Now this is going to be very rough, okay, but if you've ever used a sculpting program like, I don't know, well, not Mudbox, no one really uses that anymore, but certainly ZBrush or something like that, you'll probably be fairly familiar with the idea. What we're going to do is we're going to sculpt a landscape. So if I go back to landscape now, you can see I've got these sculpting tools and a brush. Now my brush is variable size, so at the minute it's this size and additive. I'll do a Control Z, and I can increase or decrease the size using the square brackets, or just typing it over here. And remember, this is units, so this is 31720, so that's a diameter, sorry, a radius of 317 meters, which is pretty darn huge. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build some basically some big cliffy hills, okay, with a valley down the middle. So I'll change my brush fall off to be a little bit longer. There you go, you can see that second ring now. And then if I just drag down here, you'll see that I've created one here, and then I'll do the same again. There we go, another one there. And I'll just make them more or less the same height. There we go. Now, I want to flatten the top. So if I go to my flatten tool just here, and I'll reduce the size of my brush, so I can just use my square bracket for that, and just click, and you'll see that I've now created a kind of a plateau there. And if I drag it across, there we go, I've made this plateau like that. And I can do the same on the other side, so click, drag, make a second plateau like that. So now I've got two plateaus. Now another thing I can do is, and again I'm just doing this really basic, so I'm not using any stamps for erosion or anything like that, but I could do some hydro erosion if I wanted to. So I'll just click here, and that will add some basic erosion patterns to my map, especially if I reduce the size of my brush. So just drag it down on the flow with how everything would go there, and you'll start to see like general erosion patterns coming in. Same over here. And I'm just doing this really quickly to kind of demonstrate to you how we can do this, like so. Okay, there we are. Beautiful. It's even got little holes in it, look. Okay, so now that I've done that, you're probably looking at this and thinking, well, that's good. We've created a plateau. What now? Well, let me go back to selection mode. If I right click, play from here, you can now see the scale of what it is we're working with, and it's huge. Okay, there's no doubt about it. This is like a really big scale that we're working on here. Now, we don't have any material on this. If I just jump down here, we also don't have any, fall damage, so I can run all the way to the bottom, and you get a really good idea of kind of what's happening. But let's just say that we want a material on this. Now, we're not going to build a landscape material today because that's complicated, and that's for other lessons. But we can put a basic material onto this in the meantime. Now, if I select my landscape, so I'll just select it, and you'll notice that when I do, my landscape actually has lots of sub-landscape streaming proxies going on here. So I'm going to select the top level one, and if I scroll down my details, you can see that I've got a landscape material. Now, if I click in here, it will actually let me use any material I want on this. And I already have some grass anyway, so if I just type in grass, here we go, this is one that comes with it. ground grass material, prepare for it to look horrible, because it will. Oops, and I'll save my map as well. There we are, saving it. But you can see now that not a lot's happened, right? We don't actually have the grass on our landscape. Well, if I go back up here, you can see it's in our landscape material here, but it's not in the others. So let's get all our streaming proxies here. And inside these, we'll also add the grass. There we go. And, oh, there we are. Finally, the grass texture has added to our streaming proxies. So it's starting to look a little bit more realistic, but this isn't great grass. This isn't fantastic. It'll do, but, it's very basic. Now, rather than messing around in this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this little magnifier and go at the group that my grass is in. There it is here, ground grass. I'm going to double click it, and if we look inside of here, you can see we've got quite a complicated looking arrangement going on for our grass material. Okay, so we've got things like our basic color textures and all this kind of thing. Now we can, if I come into our texture coordinates just here, we can actually change how this is tiled, because at the minute, if I just click on here to show our preview mesh, there we go. Now, at the minute, if I look at our texture sample, coordinate index 0, we're getting a tiling of 0.5, 0.5. If I change that to 1 by 1, let's just wait and see what happens when we update it. There we go. You see it's tiling it slightly more. Now, if I was to change this to a tiling of, let's say, a high number, let's say 5 by 5, you can see now it's multiple tiling, so it's giving us 5 instances per tile. Now, I'll hit save on that. The reason being that this texture coordinate index here is feeding into, the normal map as well and other things. Let's see. I probably need to change this one as well to 5.5. Because it's only at 0.6, which isn't very much. But I'll leave that for the minute. You can tweak that yourself rather than me getting caught up in it, which is exactly what's going to happen. But if I come back now, you can see that the tiling on our grass has changed. Okay? So it's starting to look slightly better. Now, What I would like to do as well is I would like to introduce kind of rocks and shapes into this that I currently don't have. And I would like some grass and things like that. Now, we don't have any grass at the moment, so how do I get grass into my scene? Well, we've already got this landscape in place. Now, if we go up here to quickly add to the project, we can actually go to Quixel Bridge. And let's say I want to get a little bit of grass into my scene. You know, Quixel Bridge is the place that I'm going to grab it from because it's not going to cost me any money. Now, if I just wait for it to load up, I'm already logged in. You can log in with your Unreal Engine account. Turns out I did need to log in, so I had to pause quickly there. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to find some 3D plants. Okay, I'm going to go through this relatively quick. Grass. I might well have these already, but we'll go for wild grass. And let's find, we don't want tundra, we want something that's going to be, you know, suitable for our means. So I'm going to grab maybe this nice wild grass here. There we go. And because, you know, well, looks like I need to sign in again, even though it just told me I was already signed in, so that's helpful. Come on, get me signed in. There we go. Because I'm, you know, showing you how to do this, I'm just going to download it at medium quality rather than the highest quality, because that takes less time. So I'm going to click download. There we go. And now it will start downloading, which should. And when it's downloaded, if you go over to your local Megascans 3D plants, you'll find it about here, and I can just click to add it to my project, or there should be a little arrow just here. So there we go, export medium quality. And it will take a moment, but there you go, it's done. So I can see behind here, it's already done. Megascans can be a little bit clanky, okay, just the way it is. But here we go, we've got lots and lots of lovely grass here. And the ones we're interested in are these LOD ones. So if I just double click on them, there you go, you see we've got this beautiful detailed grass here. Same here, okay, these little clumps. And then we've got these and these. So we've got, what, 5 different types of grass, is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different kinds of grass. Brilliant. So how are we going to use it? Well, we're going to place some foliage. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to my selection mode, and I'm going to go to foliage just here. And we can see they've automatically been added to here. Okay, all of them. Now, that's great. It means we don't have to. Otherwise, we just have to click and drag them across, and it'll create the foliage assets for us. But I want to set these up properly. And the reason for that is because if I just select all of these, there we go, and just start drawing like that, you'll notice that we get the foliage appearing, but it's not really very satisfying in how it's appearing, okay? It's not quite right. And yes, I know that it's not the right colour for the grass and all this kind of thing, and also the shaders haven't compiled, there we go. But it doesn't look quite right. They're all spaced out and they're all weird. And we can see here there's 89 of these, 97 of these, 87, 87, 90, blah, 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 okay? So not a great balance either. Now let's do a Control Z and get rid of them. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to select all of them. So click on the first, hold Shift, click on the last, and scroll down. And we need to sort out the density first. So this is how many are going to be in a 1000 by 1000 unit area. Now 100 is not enough. If I put 1000 and click, that's better. Okay, it's certainly more dense, but there's still big spaces in between. And we've got a lot of these grass stalks kind of taking up a lot of space that maybe we don't want. You've got to think about foliage logically as possible here. Foliage is really important. So let's drop this back to 100. And we'll keep the actual grass stalks with the seeds on the end pretty much the same. But we're going to increase only this one. And this one I'm going to make, and I better delete these. So I'm just holding Shift and clicking. There we go. So this one, I'm going to increase that one to 2500. And now if I click, you'll notice that we get a lot more of this kind of grass coming in and a lot less of the other type. So it's kind of balancing it out. But we're still not getting anywhere near enough. Control Z. Well, in that case, what we need to do is maybe increase this. So I'll increase this to 6000, which is a lot. And let's click now. And you're seeing that we're starting to get more coverage here. Still not ideal. So we're obviously going to need to increase that more, but you can see the difference in how many are being put out now. So I'm going to reduce the size of my brush because it's quite large. There we go. And that's a bit better. And instead, I'm going to increase the density on this to 9,000. And then I'm going to take some of the additional grass, like this one here, and I'm going to put this up to 1,000. I'm going to put this one up to maybe 500, just so that we get variance like that. 500, and maybe 150 for the last one. So now if I click, you'll notice that we get a much better kind of spread here, okay? It still looks nice and thick, but we've got a good variation of the actual kind of rough grass that's growing here and all that kind of thing. Still not perfect though, okay? Not by a long shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce some extra elements into this as well. So we've got one grass already. Now I already have, if I go to my, I'll just load this up from the background here, bridge, I already have a few other kinds of grass, like these grass clumps. So I'm going to just export those as medium quality too. There we go. And I'm also going to get some of these field poppies, but not too many, because too many is going to look weird. So there, we've got field poppies and grass clumps. And remember, if I import them, it's going to, most of the time, try and add them automatically, although it hasn't this time, go figure. Okay, so if I go into the foliage of my field poppy, we can see we've got all kinds of different static mesh foliages, and I'm going to add all of them. So with them all selected, I'm just going to drag them into here. There we are. And what other plants do we have? We have grass clumps, so I'll go into that foliage folder, and I'll drag them across too. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to increase the density of these grass clumps. So I'm going to increase these to 2,500. And the poppies I'm going to keep as they were, because I think that's the best way. And I think what I'll do is I'll reduce the grass, okay, that actually has seeds on it, to maybe only 150. And if I click now, we'll start to see more variation. Yep, that's starting to work. The grass clumps are starting to cover more. So I'll just increase the amount the grass clumps are covering. So I need everything to be selected for pasting. Control A, click there so they're all ticked, and then press. And there, that looks much nicer, doesn't it? Okay, so we have all these going here and looking much more pretty. Okay, now what I could do is I could just say to this, oh, I want you to fill everything in. But I don't really want it to. I only want this to be on the top here. I don't want it to be on the bottom or inside the valley, because I'd like the valley to be more filled with rocks. And I'm going to show you how we do that in a minute. But first, what I've done is I've drawn in some of these poppies here. Okay, and the reason I've done this is because you can kind of see how dense they are, okay? And this is going to cause a little bit, well, quite a lot of strain on Unreal Engine after a while. Now, we can get a solution to this by using a cull, okay? And a cull's really useful because what that's going to do is it's going to make these invisible at a certain distance. So with everything selected, just Control A will do the same job. If I come down here, and I need to delete these as well, just so that, you know, I'm not being distracted by them, so just shift and dragging is deleting them. There we are. Right, what I'm looking for is the cull distance, okay? So we've got 2 here. This is the minimum start of the cull distance and the maximum start. So let's say when I'm 5,000 to 10,000 units away, then it'll cull. And now if I draw and then start flying away from it, when I get to a certain distance, they'll remove themselves. That was just there. But that's quite a long way. So let's reduce it. So I'll remove them again, and let's make the cull distance instead 1,250 with a maximum of 5,000. And I'm going to draw a line of them like this. And now fly away, and you'll see that they're being culled as I go away from them. But the thing is, because it's foliage, it doesn't really matter because we're going to be down here. So we're only going to see it really anyway over the top of the other poppies and flowers and things like that. So it means that Unreal Engine isn't having to draw as many of these as it did. Now there's another thing I want to teach you about as well, which is variance. Okay, and variance is really important. Now at the minute everything's coming out and it's the same size. Well, that may not be a problem, you know, it looks okay to you and me, but to be honest, variance and chaos is kind of what brings life into our world. Okay, nothing is, you know, nothing is formal like that. Nothing is uniform like that. Blades of grass aren't exactly the same height, width, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change a couple of things in here as well. And you see here the scale X, minimum and maximum. I'm going to make the scale minimum 0.9 and the maximum 1.1. So that's going to give us a variation of 10% up or down on the size of things. And if I click now, even though you can't see it too well, okay, the poppies now have different heights. Fab. Okay, so we've got some variation in there as well. Now another thing is this ground slope angle. Now if I was to try drawing them like so, you'll see they're not going to draw over the edge of the cliff, and that's because the angle is too steep. Once it hits 45 degrees, it's like, nope, I can't grow there. And we can adjust this if we wanted. We can make it maybe 12.5 degrees. And once we do that, it won't even get close to the edge. You'll notice it just starts to peter off. Okay, so this is how we tell it, oh, we don't necessarily want anything on that edge there. Now 12.5 is kind of ideal for me as well. So I think I'm ready to start laying down my grass. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get my biggest brush, like so, and just draw all the way across there. Now remember, we're quite a long way away, so anything that I have created we can't really see, can we? So we need to make sure that we can see it. And I'm pausing at the minute, like in what I'm saying, because this could well be driving up the amount of processing time it needs. In fact, it definitely will be. And so I think this is almost certainly enough poppies for our needs. Okay, I don't want it to really start crashing things while we're doing stuff. Now if I close down my foliage mode again, go back to selection, there we go, and I'm just going to right click play from here just to drop us in the middle of the cornfield or poppy field, and there you can now see that we have this stretching poppy field. Okay, now the light's really blown out, but that's not surprising considering the sun is basically slamming down from, you know, pretty much straight above. So I'm going to take my directional light, and I think it's up there, and I'm going to move my directional light, which I've immediately lost. Where's it gone? There it is. I'm going to move that to give us more of a kind of an evening kind of vibe to our poppies. But everything does look a little bit listless and lifeless, doesn't it? Well, that's okay. We got this through Quixel, didn't we? We got this through Quixel's mixer. So, not mixer, sorry, Quixel Bridge. So what we can do is, if we go into our content browser here and we go to our Megascans folder, because that's where it'll put the 3D plants, let's start by going to our grass here. And if I just open that up, you'll notice that we have an MI grass. Okay, this is the main grass material for all of our grass. We also have a billboard which is used when it's at a certain distance, but the one we're most interested in is MI grass. And if I double click on that, this is a material instance, as you can see, and they put plenty of functions in here for us. Now the first one I'm interested in is color variation. Now if I change my color variation to 0.1, we're going to get different shades of grass, which is pretty cool. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enable grass wind. And if we give that just a second, just to finish compiling its shaders, and then hit save, we can now see we're getting movement in our grass. Only our grass though. Okay, not a problem. Let's go back to our content drawer. We've got our grass clumps. We can do the same here. So again, color variation, 0.1, enable grass wind. And all it's doing is it's doing an action called a displacement on the material to make it look like it's moving in the wind. We'll do the last one on our field poppies. So here we go, go into there, and I'm going to put slightly more color variation on this, 0.15, and we'll enable the grass wind. And you can kind of turn it down if it's too much and all this kind of thing, so don't worry about that. There we go. And now if I right click play from here, we start to get that much more dynamic look, this much more dynamic feel from the wind, kind of blowing our poppies around. Okay, so that's great. Now What about down there though? What about down there in our great big kind of empty area? Well, we can still use foliage for this as well. If I come down into my selection mode and I want to go into foliage, now I don't just have to add, and I'll reduce the size of my brush quite a lot here, I don't just have to add plants to foliage. Anything can be foliage. I did a talk in Germany at Dev Gamescom about this. So what I'm going to do is go to my content drawer and go at my props. Here we go. Start a content, props. And we do actually have a great big rock in there. Now, it's not a beautiful rock. Okay, I've seen plenty of rocks in my time, and this one isn't, as you can see. But it will do as an example. Now, if I drag this into my foliage type, what it will do is it will want to make a foliage type asset, SM rock foliage type. So I'll click save. And now, if I come down here, and I'll leave that one there just as a reference, what I can do is I can select my rock. So I'm going to select that, and I'll deselect everything else. So there we go, just select my rock. And if I click, my foliage is now going to paint nothing but my rock. And as you can see, it's not ideal, you know, it's just a load of rock, but it's a good start. Okay, let's finish preparing its shaders. Now, I'm going to Control Z and get rid of that again. There we go, it's all gone. And certainly the density is a little bit high, I would say, isn't it? So let's change its density down to maybe 50 tops. And let's change its scale as well. So a minimum of 1, and let's say a maximum of 4. Now if I click, you'll notice we start getting all sorts of crazy rock formation shapes. There's still too many here though, so let's just cull down the density a bit. Density, let me see, we want maybe 25. There, you see, so they're starting to spread out more, but they're all still pointing upwards. Okay, so we can see that they're all pretty much exactly the same damn rock, which we may not want. Okay, because it's going to, you know, it's really going to kind of get rid of a lot of our immersiveness for this project. Okay, well, let's change its scale to 3 max, and I'm just going to delete these ones. There we go, like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my Z offset, and that's basically when we put it on the ground, this is how much it offsets it off the ground. So for example, if I put a maximum offset of 50 and clicked, you'll see some literally are doing that. They have an offset of about 50. They look like they're floating above the ground. In fact, that one is. I can do this the other way though. So if I change my minimum offset to -25 and the maximum to -5, I can make it look like they're further into the ground. Okay, and that's another random amount that it's doing it by. Now another thing I can do is I can change its alignment maximum angle. Change that to 90 degrees, and now they're starting to lie in different positions and tilt and do all sorts of things like that. Now if I change my align and maximum angle to anywhere up to 180 and then click, now the alignment maximum angle has been changed. And if I do my random pitch angle at 90 and then click, you can now see we're getting much more randomness out of these rocks down here, okay, at the bottom of our valley. Now we can also adjust the ground slope angle that it's happy to go on. Now 45, let's make that perhaps 85. Okay, so that means that it will now quite happily paint on walls like this, all the way up to nearly 90 degrees, like so. So now we can have this chasm area here literally filled with these rocks. Okay, it's not ideal because these aren't great rocks, but hopefully you're getting the idea. Now I'll Control Z and get rid of those as well. There we go. And is there anything else that I can put into this as well? Well, we've got our instance settings, so we could make it so that you can collide with them. So I'll just put block all, and that way, you know, we can't walk through them like we can with the poppies. And affect distance fields. Yeah, let's put that on as well. If we put on distance fields as well, then that'll affect things like lumen, which we're already using. Okay, so now we can also put on a cull distance if we want to. So let's say a minimum of 2,500 and a maximum of 5,000. And now our rocks, as you can see, will appear or disappear based on our proximity to them. I think that's probably not a great idea having it so low, so I'll make it 5,000, 10,000. There you go, and now we can see them properly. Okay, that's great. We've got these coming in. Now, what else can we do though? Well, another thing is that we can still combine the grass with this, okay? So I'll just hit save. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up a little bit here, and you see here we've got a radius. Okay, so this is the minimum distance between foliage instances. So we can set up basically how far of a radius this thing has. Now, if I delete all these, there we go. I think that should be nearly all of them. And I change my radius instance to maybe 150. Now if I draw, they have a minimum 150 space between the pivot points. If I increase it again, let's say 350. So you see they're starting to space out more and more and more. Bring it to 500. Again, spacing out more and more and more. So if I put this down to maybe 250, like that, and then what I'm going to do is select my filler flowers up here as well. And they won't climb up the cliffs, remember, because they're bound by angle. So now what I can do is start clicking, and it's going to put my foliage in between the rocks, like so. So now I'm starting to procedurally fill in these big spaces. And you'll notice that it's aware when I've already got some foliage in place, so it won't put additional foliage over the top of it. And remember, our grass isn't going to work above 12 degrees or 12.5 degrees, so it's only going to be rocks putting themselves in after that point. So now we have this rock-filled kind of area, and if I click on the walls, we have rocks coming across there as well, like that. So now what I'm going to do is go out of foliage mode to selection mode, and remember what I said, the rocks have collision volumes. So if I come down here and try and walk through my rocks, I shouldn't be able to. So it hasn't applied the collisions, and I'll tell you why it hasn't applied the collisions to those rocks if you'd like. It's because none of these rocks have collision volumes. In order to fix that, what I'll do is go down here to SM rock, double click, collision, auto convex, let's give it a hole count of 1 and 28 hole verts, and click apply. Save. There we go. And now our rocks do have collisions, and yeah, that'll make things a little bit easier. Otherwise we'll just like thud through them. And again, you know, emergent gameplay now, because now we have to climb across these rocks to get to the other side. So that's another, you know, another obstacle to our players, you know, start and finish point. Brilliant. Okay, so we have our valley here. Okay, we have it, you know, pretty much filled with grass or whatever. I'd like you to go and decorate yours now, any way you see fit. Use any foliage you find. Just make yourself something really, really pretty and beautiful. And I will see you in the next lesson when we connect this with, you know, a little bridge of some kind. And to do that, I think what we could do is we could use, oh, I know, we'll use the PCG framework, which is a brand new thing that just came in inside of Unreal Engine 5.2. So, till next time, see you soon. Bye-bye for now.